and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. So you're going to see both PowerPoint and recording. So basically, like I said, I had about 8 or 10 people who wanted this, and so I'm just going to send them the recording anyway. But let's go back to that slide I was showing you. Right, so let's take a look here. Yes, I'm sure you have idea what he's better at, but it's still best to have him take both and just compare the scores. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because you won't truly know which one is better until he tries it out. Now look, this is the general idea. SAT has easier math, but much harder reading comprehension. Let's say on a level,
this already tells me, yeah, this already tells me his math is much better than reading comprehension.
So he might do better on ACT actually.
Yes, exactly.
But
yeah.
ACT has one more thing that makes it a little bit more uncomfortable for the students, the timing. So SAT has less time constraints, meaning they have more time per question. So on SAT, let's say on math, they will have roughly like 1.5 minutes, sometimes even 2 minutes per question. On ACT, it has to be a little quicker. And so that has to be taken into account as well. So if you're telling me that he generally doesn't test well, usually that's timing issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think actually timing is not a problem for him. He just does not double check. He rushes through things without double checking. This is where his problem is. So for example, majority of his math tests, let's say he may get the first B or C, the next time, and the teacher in many cases will let him retake, he'll come out with an A because of course he knows he needed to double check. That is his problem. He gets all the concepts and then he just, so it's not really the timing, and he finishes everything on time, no problem, but it just,
yeah,
still working through this.
Definitely. Hey, a familiar face, hello. I can see one more, yeah, so Marina, okay, so look, this is a common problem, and unfortunately, this is not one that is easily resolved. The careless mistakes happen a lot. As a matter of fact, when I was preparing for this exam, that was my biggest problem. So I was super good in math. I was coming off of the specialized program, and ultimately I ended up scoring 800, so perfect score, but I was making a lot of careless mistakes. I got lucky. I figured out that I need to slow down. It was super painful because everybody has their own pace. You know what I mean? Marina?
Yep, agree.
Everybody has their own pace. And so it's very difficult to really slow down. That's one thing that as a tutor, I really kind of struggle with. So to get them to slow down is one of the hardest things a tutor can do. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But, again, on ACT, he might have an advantage because everybody is going to rush, not just him. ACT is very time restraining, so everybody is going to be rushing. So that might be one thing to do. The other thing to do, when you do start SAT or ACT preparation, you already know that's the weakness. So you can talk to a tutor or his teacher, and typically they do have, like I have tricks to make them slow down. You know what I mean? Like I have tricks. When I tutor them, I time them and I say, look, you cannot enter the answer until the buzz, for example. That makes sense?
Yep.
They get bored, they go back, they check their work, and finally it becomes a habit. It's a pain in the butt, I tell you that, because again, you have to kind of force them. But you know what I mean? You're already, you know what they say, informed, so you're already ahead of the game. So you already kind of know what you're doing. But that is something you're going to have to address. But look, address it later. Don't worry about it right now. Right now, I think you're on the right track. Right now, you're making him take honors. You said honors in math, right?
Yeah, both English and math, yeah.
That's it. For now, just worry about preparing him academically. That's all it really takes. Look, I have students, when they come for SAT, I have students with whom I work for like 1.5 months and they score almost perfect. And I have students with whom I work for half a year and they don't score well or don't score as well as they could. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It really depends a lot on what their original initial preparation level is.
Right. Yep.
Does that make sense?
I hear you. It makes sense.
Okay. So right now, I would say until for the next 2 years. Okay, Marina, let me just pause for a second and let me welcome. I see we have, I'm just going to welcome, I see we have one more person joining. And I see this is a student, which is a great, which is great. What is your name, young man? Yes, the Mr. Sakharov. What is your name? Please speak. And let me see if your microphone is working. Is your mic working? Okay, he doesn't seem to respond. All right. Can you hear me? Can you type in a chat what your name is? All right. Okay, we'll keep going and see if he joins us in the conversation. So, right. So as I was saying, right now, just make sure that your son has a solid math. Hey, Ala, can you hear me? Hey, I can't hear you, but I unmuted you. Your mic should be working, but I can't hear you. Ala, can you hear me? Show me thumbs up. Show me thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, great. So try to fix your mic because I can't hear you. Or use the chat, please. We started a conversation about ACT versus SAT because this is going to be an important choice. So we started that conversation with Marina. SAT versus ACT, which one is better to take? That's the conversation we're having right now. And also we're having a conversation about when is the good time to actually start preparing, right? Because Marina's son is the freshman, and the kid that I saw on your screen, I'm not sure what grade is he in. Type it in for me so I have an idea what grade he is in. Okay, yeah, I still can't hear you, so just type it in, please. Yep, thanks. Okay, so Marina, coming back to what we were talking about. So until the summer, after the sophomore year, I would not worry. I'll give you, for example, so I just was consulting a person. She lives here in Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn. She's the African-American middle-class family, goes to a fairly nice school, but we knew from the start that her math is not great. She went and she took honors class, but she was struggling. Does that make sense? Marina,
yes.
She was struggling with math. So basically what I recommended is that she continues with honors and she takes some additional math classes. In Brooklyn, there's like tons of them. She started taking additional classes. She's doing pretty well. That is pretty much a guarantee that SAT is going to go well. The math is going to go well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I would probably, you told me he's stronger in math. I would probably worry more about the English part.
Agree. And that's why actually when he was finishing middle school, he was not recommended necessarily by his teachers to take honors option. I insisted for him to take honors option, and I'm really glad I did. He has a great teacher who is really pushing him hard. He's right now in the B+, A- range, which is in working very hard on it, but I know his comprehension level is not where it should be. So we're still working on it. Yep.
Awesome. Here I would make two suggestions because you do have time. Basically, when opportunity presents, and that's probably in the summer, get him to read stuff. Get him to read stuff. Does he read? Or he probably doesn't have time. Probably doesn't have time with the school, does he?
It's not even about time. I think it's right now. It's really our general time, right? So what do the kids do these days, right? When they have free time, that's not what they do. They don't read. They play games. They want to go out. They want to do other things. So that's really the problem with him. But what would be the books that you would recommend, for example?
Okay, so here's the two things that really help. One, get him to read something ridiculously stupid. There are two reasons why that works. if you get him to read something stupid, like the girls read those vampire books, get him to read like a Game of Thrones or something like that.
Okay.
That makes sense. It might sound like a strange suggestion, but it works for two reasons. One, it's kind of fun, so he's less likely to resist you. Make sense? Second,
yes.
Second, it's going to develop the general focus. He will need this ability to like sit down and read for like 3 hours. That's what SAT is like, or ACT. You're sitting down and you're reading for 3 hours. So you need that general ability, that general focus to sustain that kind of reading for a while. Some kind of a simple, stupid literature like Martin, like take George Martin, or take those vampire books, or whatever might catch his interest, but something easy, so he's not gonna go crazy with it. Does that make sense?
Yes, I see. Will do.
Here's the second thing. The second thing is to get him to read some magazines, and I will talk about specifically which magazines. I'll tell you specifically which ones. Look, I'm gonna come back to SAT versus ACT, but since it came up, I'm gonna go straight to what I feel is like the most important thing I can share with you. Okay?
Uh-huh.
This is my. Okay, that one is too young to go to college, Oliver. I can see that he's too young. Yeah, beautiful, but too young to go to college. Okay.
She's getting him ready, though. See, at this age, Allah is right.
Yeah. She looks like she's getting him ready. I know, mothers, huh? Okay. Anyway.
And so is Alex.
Awesome. But here, look, I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna talk about sort of like this most important thing that I want to share with you. To get into the college today, like to really, one thing that can really set you aside from everybody else, if you create a story, and I'll explain what I mean by this story. Think about this last election, right? Hillary versus Trump. And
okay.
I'm completely clueless when it comes to politics. I'm completely apolitical person. I really don't care. But when I was listening to them, I thought to myself, Trump has a much better story. I'll explain what I mean. A candidate can come in, let's go back to college. A student can come in, and very typical. I literally, a few years ago, this was one of my best success stories. I spoke to this girl and I said, I came to consult her, and I said, well, tell me about you. Tell me, what are your strong points? What are you going to tell colleges about yourself so they will accept you? And she said, well, I'm a great swimmer. I have a great average. I have a good PSAT. She didn't take SAT at that time yet. I have a great PSAT score. I am active in a community. She was doing something in a local Jewish community. I'm active in a community. Those are my strong suits. Now, this is not a story. This is a resume. That makes sense? This is like a points. I'm good at this. I'm good at this. I'm good at this. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You get it? Okay, cool. And you're going to the 9th grade. Awesome. So got it. So you're a freshman. Got it. Okay. So that sounds like that sounds like a resume. We worked with her and we discovered the following things. We discovered that she's super passionate about swimming. The reason she's passionate is because it gives her a sense of freedom. That makes sense so far?
Yes.
We discovered that her talent is working with people. So she is very social, loves people, loves communicating. We also discovered that her talent is she's very analytical, right? So what I got her to do is she had some plans for the summer. So instead of that, I got her to go into to sign up to work in a camp for kids and teach kids swimming. She's very passionate, so I got her to teach kids swimming. Also, she was considering career in medicine. So I got her to read very specific articles, the articles about the orthopedics and prosthetics, because she was super, like her main passion in life was swimming. Like swimming was everything because it was super dynamic, gave her a sense of freedom. So what we were doing is connecting that passion to her talents and connecting it to her possible future career. That makes sense?
Yes.
So what we ended up with is a story. Story for her sounded like this. I love swimming because it gives me a sense of freedom and movement. And I love sharing that with others. Here's what I did. I'm sharing it with kids. Here's the experience of sharing it. Here's what I learned through it. And now I'm going to be volunteering in a hospital and learning about this because ultimately I see myself as helping other people gain their freedom through healing them. Does that make sense?
Yes. Was this your like entry essay into one of the schools?
Exactly. That became her essay. But before it became her essay, that became her story. Does that make sense? So before she wrote
the
essay, she started focusing more on swimming. She started teaching other kids. She started volunteering in a particular way. She started reading a particular articles. That make sense?
Yep.
Also, by discovering her, not even discovering, but rather maybe emphasizing her real passion, her real interest, I got her to read articles about sports medicine, about rehabilitation. Those are very technical articles, but she became super interested in it, had a lot to say about it afterwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now that's a great story. That's a great story. Does that make sense? Now that's a really great story because later that she wrote it, later this is what she related on the interview. She got accepted into Yale, and in the interview they told her, "Hey, we loved your essay. Tell us more about how do you feel when you swim? Tell us more about your teaching experience, your learning experience, and so forth." Does that make sense?
Yep.
But before the essay, what I'm trying to say is that you need to do some work. If you don't know yet, you need to do some work on discovering what he is passionate and what he is talented about, and then trying to connect it to some kind of a professional path. Does that make sense? I know it sounds a little bit abstract right now.
Yes, it
sounds a little bit.
Like I said, so this is my. No, I mean, because everything you say makes sense. It's just that because I already went through this with my older son, right? So it was easier to do with him because he knew a little bit more about what he wanted to do. With the younger one, it's more difficult. But so he's not really ready. He's thinking already probably something business-like without really specifics because that's what his older brother does.
Awesome.
So yeah.
That's a good start. Let me help you with that. That's a good start. Let me show you something from the presentation real quick. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint now. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
You can see the 3 circles, right?
Yep.
So this is the kind of the homework, the research that you're going to have to start doing with him. You don't have to, obviously, but I would suggest. Here's the idea. He knows he wants to do business, right? You said simply because his brother does it, right? I disagree. I think he probably has some kind of a talent in it. He probably has some kind of predisposition, some kind of abilities. So probably he has a talent that he thinks he's going to be good in one of the business fields. Is that true or not?
I'm sorry.
Right.
I missed your question.
Okay. What I'm thinking is that he wants to go into business for one of the 2 reasons. Either there is something there that he really likes, whatever that could be. Maybe he loves talking to people. Maybe he loves the idea of just building something. I don't know. Or or he has a particular talent that he wants to that would probably make him good at it. What do you think?
I actually think that he, for now, just follows his older brother footsteps.
He's just mimicking.
Yes, okay. At the moment.
Well, what is he good at? What would you say are his talents?
Math and analytical skills is really what I think he's pretty good at, and he really, really enjoys the economics class actually that they take right now. So I think that this is what it will come to him, but it's not something that, for example, he immediately knows that he's pretty good. Analytical skills is there, but, he doesn't want to go, for example, okay, so analytical skills, math is good, right? So you think engineering, computers, something like that.
No,
that's not what he wants to do, right? That to me is more stereotypical, for example, but so that's why he's thinking for now business, but doesn't know exactly what it is because business is huge, right? You have marketing, finance, tons of things.
Absolutely. No, I was thinking something completely different. No, I wasn't thinking engineering. I'm thinking in the business, like you said, it's a big field. In the business, he could start thinking about a particular field that is more analytical. For example, finance is more analytical, or modeling is more analytical, right? So there are sides of business that are more maybe sales or marketing, but there are sides of business like finance or modeling that are more analytical. Does that make sense?
Right. It makes sense. Plus, he's pretty social. So I think that it's going to be marriage between these two, right? So exactly like sales, the market. We'll see. Right.
But meanwhile, here's what I would suggest. So get him some fun. There are really great magazines that he would be able to read, and he might feel good about it if he has if at least he has some idea. And because again, the story is not going to be created overnight. The story is created over time. So he might start reading, he might find a particular topic that is interesting him, he might do a little volunteering somewhere. Ultimately, he might end up, like I don't want him to get to the point where you're applying to college. I don't want him to say, hey, I'm analytical, I'm social, I'm gonna do good in business. I don't want that. That's very typical. That makes sense?
Yes.
I want a story, so I want him to come to an interview or or application process, and I want him to say, okay, I'm very analytical, but I want to contribute to this and this, and I know that, let's say, Facebook is contributing in this particular way. I read about their programming, and me being the analytical person, this is what I love. So I'm thinking of doing this because I want to contribute in this way. Now you see the difference.
I understand where you're going with this. Yeah.
That would become a great story. Plus, it could be a good start for him. Now, I'm not saying that that's what he's going to end up doing, but the more you're going to work in that particular direction, and by direction, I mean refining. We want to end up, these three circles, we want to end up here in the middle. That's sort of like what I like to call a greatness zone. A greatness zone, or like a sweet spot. We want to end up in the middle where it's sort of like something he's excited about, something he's talented in, and something that colleges would love, or society in general would love, right? So just as an example, again, he might say, well, I have taken this, and I'm just making it up. But he might say, well, I have taken this great programming class, or I went to this, engineering club. But, what I want to do is I want to contribute like Elon Musk. I read articles about Elon Musk. I follow his blog. I want to contribute in this and this way. And this is what I have done so far. And I think I can do it because here's my talents. Here's what I've done. And I'm super passionate about this. That makes sense?
Yep.
And that now really sets him aside. That creates a great story, and that is something that the colleges are going to notice.
Okay.
But what you start with is simply having kind of two conversations with him. What are what do you really like and what are your talents? And next, what can we do today to start kind of exploring it? And I think the simple step to take today is to kind of start reading some articles, or maybe start following some blogs about the business. Specifically,
Agree.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Teenagers spend tons of time online. I'm gonna stop this for a second. Correct? I see the gentleman there smiling, so I take it as a yes. Why not read a blog? Cool. By the way, could you do me a favor, the Allah's son? Could you type in your name so I can call you by name? Thank you. Okay.
Dmitry, I have a hard stop at 8:40, so apologies for that, though.
I'm sorry. What are you saying?
I have a hard stop at 8:40, so I will have to log off the conference. So, but you said that you record the rest of it, and you'll be able to send it, right?
I'll record the rest of it, and yes, no problem. What time is it now? What time is it now? Oh, it's 8:32. Okay, but you have to log in like about 8 minutes.
Yes.
Got it.
I just want to let you know.
Yeah, once we get into these conversations, they tend to go. But this is a difficult conversation. Deciding. Yeah, absolutely, Alex. I'm gonna send it to about 8 people who signed up. So it's easy to have a conversation SAT versus ACT because it's a very easy step to take. You know what I mean? You take the 2 exams, you compare which one you did better, and you're good to go. Very easy decision as to when to start preparing for the SAT. You start preparing right after the summer, after your sophomore year. That's the time to prepare. A much harder conversation to have is deciding the general direction, the general path, the general career path, ultimately deciding what you want to do. And this is going to be a process that is going to keep changing and evolving. You know what I mean? Like, Alex, you can decide today that you want to become who do you want to become? Type it in, please. That you want to become a brain surgeon, but that could change. But at least having that direction could help in a number of ways. Does that make sense? Maria?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought you talking to Alex. Yep.
Something that uses public speaking. Right. So Alex wants to be in public speaking. Awesome. We will talk about that. And that's the idea. But essentially, this is not easy. But what I'm inviting you to do is try to refine it and try to invite him into this conversation. I think the practical step would be, again, to get him to read some kind of blog for a business or some kind of magazine for business. Probably blog would be better because it would be a little bit more hip and a little bit more easy to get into. You're gonna kill 2 birds with 1 shot. First of all, you're gonna start developing his reading comprehension skills because he's gonna start reading something more professional. Second of all, you're gonna start developing what I like to call a story. Yeah?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How does that sound as a practical step to you? Do you think it's doable, or do you think it's not something he's gonna be happy about?
I think it is doable. I just need to start slow. My mind already started thinking what it is and of course I can use help from my older son who can point into a little bit more at his level kind of things and maybe interesting, because you need to spark the interest so he can continue doing this, right? Because when if you give something very adult-like, that is like, it's not interesting, the language is going to be difficult, for example, too difficult, let's say.
There's a beautiful blog called Freakonomics. So they try to make economics fun. It's called Freakonomics. They try to make it more appealing, more fun to read. That could be a way to go.
Yep. I was also thinking he actually subscribes to that Morning Brew I think it's actually an interesting business reading. It's
Absolutely.
for college graduates.
Yep.
I don't know if you read it, but that's the one.
No, I don't read it, but no, I don't read it, but I heard good things about it.
Yes. So it's written in the college, in the not kids, but college language. So it's not your necessarily. So there's a lot of fun but there's tons of information, very businessy like. I read a couple things, and there's always a math question at the end of some sort.
No, that's very, very good. That is exactly what I had in mind. The only thing later on, you're gonna have to think like, okay, what is the next step now? Can he get to volunteer somewhere? Can he get an internship? And also start kind of, as he reads this kind of thing, asking him questions as, what do you like? Are you finding something you're liking? And then trying to steer him in that direction. That makes sense?
Yep, makes sense.
And that would be creating a story. I mean, Alex, we're going to get to you in a minute. Public speaking is also a very broad topic, but we'll get to it in a minute. Okay. Let's go back for a second to SAT versus SAT, because that's where we started. So any questions there, Marina? Like any questions from SAT versus SAT arena?
No, I think that so far, I mean, what you suggested is actually a very good suggestion. So I'm really going to follow this.
The only thing I would say, try to remember that the ideal time to prepare, and I'm very kind of not I want to say I don't insist, because I can't insist here, but I really feel strongly the best time to prepare is this summer after sophomore year. That's important to remember. Like, start your SAT or ACT preparation in that summer. Just remember that.
Okay.
There are tons of reasons. I'm not going to get into them, but it's by far the best time.
Got it. Okay. This makes sense. I'll make sure. And now it's going to be recorded, so I will definitely remember. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Dmitry, I'm going to log off right now. So thank you so much for all of the information you shared. And once you send this information, I'll read the rest of it. But thank you again for your help.
No problem. Here's sort of a final thought. So just if you want to, I can just take your email. I'm going to put it into my subscription, and I'm going to be constantly putting out short videos about this anyways. So
I would really appreciate it, actually. I really would.
And the other thing is also, at the end of the webinar, I'm going to also offer a brief, it's a sort of like 6-part lecture course about all of this, where I go into more detail, even more detail. And it's pretty cheap. It's like $27. So the link to it also is going to be there. Please consider that as well, if you are interested, of course.
Okay. Thank you. So you have my email, right? So you already have it.
I got your email, so you're going to get the recording.
Okay.
But like I said, the link to the course is going to be there. And also I'm just going to put you in a subscription list, so you're going to get some videos.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, Alex, bye. Say hi to your mom. Bye.
Take care, Marina. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Alex, on to you, my friend. All right. Awesome. So public speaking. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, you're a freshman, right? So you just like 9th grade, you're going to be. Oh, so you're finishing up middle school right now, correct? Okay, got it. Thank you, got it. Awesome. So it's basically the same thing I was talking to Marina about, is that what you're going to be doing in the next couple of years is you're going to be trying to narrow it down, because public speaking is there's so much about it. Look, I'm just going to pull back that slide that I had on my screen, right? So basically, what you should be doing in the next couple of years, this is not going to happen today or overnight, right? Is thinking about those 3 things. And instead of the college, maybe think about the world in general. What would be good for the world? What can you contribute in general? right? But you're gonna think, like, for example, when you say public speaking, I'm assuming you think of it as your talent, right? You think of it as something you're good at. Okay, awesome. But then ideally you want to kind of connect it to what you really like, right? So for example, do you like teaching, helping people, playing? You know, public speaking is super helpful in a number of things. You could be teaching, you could be leading a company, right? If you're a manager, you're constantly going to be speaking to people. If you're a teacher like myself, you're constantly going to be doing public speaking. You could be a coach, right? Coaches do a lot of public speaking, right? Let me see what you typed. You like helping. Awesome. Now, again, keep in mind, you are very young gentlemen. So this is just what we're doing today. We're not going to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You get that, right? We're just going to start creating some ideas, some visions. As you move on, you're going to refine those visions. You're going to make them into what I was referring when I spoke to Marina. You're going to refine them into what I was referring to as a story. Does that make sense? So for example, and again, I'm just making it up, but your story could be is that you love public speaking. No, I mean, you're good at public speaking. You love theater, right? Maybe later on, you go on and you volunteer. I'm just making it up. Let's say you volunteer like I had a student and she volunteered here in a political campaign, right? So she was helping our, like, a local congressman or something to get reelected here in New York. Yeah, but she was kind of like that. She liked acting, she liked public speaking, so she was speaking to people a lot. She was kind of recruiting for him, and she found that she absolutely loved it. That makes sense? Yeah. So for her, it became a story. For her, it became like a beautiful story. So when she applies to college, she can write about that story. She can tell them about that story. The story being, you know, I love helping people. I love my community. I have this talent for talking to people. She was very analytical too. Like, she was really sharp analytically. And so I love speaking to people. And she kind of turned it into this helping this guy, helping this mayor to get, I'm not sure who, but it was a local politician. She was helping him to get reelected. And then when she applied to college, she said, well, in the future, I see myself maybe going and working for the mayor, maybe going and working for the city, and maybe creating some kind of a social campaign. Now, that's a beautiful story. That makes sense? That's more than just, that becomes more than just coming in and saying, hey, I love public speaking. I have done theater. I have done public speaking. I think I want to become, I'm not sure, right? That doesn't sound good. But if you come in and you say, well, here's what I love, here's what I'm good at, here's my experience so far, and I think you guys have this great political sciences program, and that's why I want to go to you. That makes sense? And this is why I have, you see, like this space in the middle, if I look at those three circles, so that space in the middle is where your passion meets your talent, and then it meets what college can offer. That makes sense? It kind of meets what the college program can offer to you. So far, so good? Yep. Okay, awesome. But, we need to, so basically, here's the next step. Essentially, start writing out, what do you really like? So far I see you like doing theater, and what you're really good is public speaking. Anything else comes to mind? Not so far. Okay. No problem, right. Yes, absolutely right. You do have some, that's for sure. And yes, sometimes it's hard to think of those when you're on a conference, on a call like this. Yes, absolutely. So I would say your next action steps are going to be to start brainstorming these. And this is going to be a work in progress. Does that make sense? So it's not like you're going to sit down, and tomorrow morning you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, great, I know who I'm going to be. I know I'm going to conquer, I'm going to conquer the world. No, it's not going to be like that. But start brainstorming the passion and the talent, and start brainstorming what could be the possible area, right? So like I kind of started saying, hey, like a politics, or maybe I'm thinking, like for you, I'm thinking, let's say, psychology, for example. That makes sense? But that's going to be the next two steps. One is trying to brainstorm and kind of try to make it a little bit more specific. And two, try to think of the specific area where this might be useful. Where not useful, but try to think of specific area or specific career where those two, what you like and what you're good at, where those two come together. That makes sense? I gave you a few examples, right? Like I gave you a few examples, like this girl, she was you kind of remind me of her. Like she was doing some improv in school, and she was really social, right? So she was in a debate club, something like that. And she was like, hey, I want to become a lawyer. Well, guess what? Yeah, there you go. Same as you. There you go. And she was like, I want to become a lawyer. Basically, my reaction was, you know what? Everybody is going to say that when they go to college. That's not a good story. That's not a cool story. That sounds more like a resume. I'm good at this. I'm good at this. I want to become that. That's not a cool story. The cool story is when you say, like we created for her, like, hey, I'm good with people, but what I love is helping others. Kind of like what you said. I like helping, right? So I went. So you're gonna have to think of the ways to actually use it, right? So what she did, she went and she did some community work. Then she went and she did some volunteering with this politician. All of that was, she wanted to create a positive social change for her community. She wanted to help. Now that sounds like a beautiful story. Here's my talent. I'm good with people. I can speak. I can really connect the ideas. I'm analytical. All of that, I went and I did this community work and I did this volunteering work, and now I see that I could maybe get into political sciences because of that. And that makes me want, now that's a beautiful story. Does that make sense? You get it? Okay, good. So that is something, so now I'm thinking for you, like for example, think of the 3 steps. One, again, think more about the passion, the talents, what you like and what are you good at. Think more about that. Things are going to start coming to you, write them down. What I would do is I would take like a little journal, and in that journal keep like 2 pages. 1 page, what I'm good at. 2nd page, what I really like. Keep writing it and sort of keep filling it out over the next 3-4 months. The other thing, the other thing you want to start thinking, like, okay, what can I start researching that kind of goes well, right? So public speaking, I like helping people. That sounds to me like psychology or coaching. So maybe I can start researching that a little bit. That makes sense? You like theater, well, maybe just actually start researching something about acting, like follow the acting blog. Does that make sense? See where that takes you, right? Think about some kind of activity. You like helping people, so I would say think something, what can you do in a community? Can you volunteer for something? Hopefully make it unique. Like very few teenagers are going to volunteer, let's say, on a political campaign. That's why I like talking about that particular girl. So think about that. That could be something also, that could be also very useful. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Any questions you have? I have a few more things I wanted to share. Then I was going to sum up and call it a night. Okay, awesome. Then I'm just going to bring up a few things. This is fairly kind of, not, I don't want to say complicated, but it's fairly advanced, because very few kids actually are thinking this way, like, okay, where is it all going? What am I going to do? But the sooner you start kind of thinking that way, the better is your story and the better are your chances of getting into college. Does that make sense? Because again, as far as the colleges, the more you accomplish and the more you present in a particular way, the more impressive it is. Cool? Okay. Now, what was I gonna say? But other than that, make sure that you feel comfortable about the math and the reading comprehension, because ultimately you're gonna end up taking SAT or ACT. Every college is gonna want to see that. Even if you decide to do something, and I don't know, even if you decide to do something artistic, right? So I had this girl who just went to, here in New York, we have a fashion institute, FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology or something like that. And so she went to be a designer, but even for that, she had to take an SAT ultimately, right? And why does designer have to know math? I have no idea, but but they test it, right? So so basically, as you go into, but I'm sure also that your parents are gonna insist on it anyways. But as you go into, probably, right? So as you go into the freshman year and then sophomore year, just make sure that you're doing something to develop a really solid foundation for math. Does that make sense? If you're doing honors classes, that could be enough. But if you're feeling that if you don't feel comfortable in any of your math classes, then definitely do something in addition to it. Now, you might not end up doing anything professionally with that later on, but it will help in your education career, academic career in general. Does that make sense? Same for the reading. And I was telling Marina, do you read anything at this point or no? Do you have a book that you like reading right now or not really? Okay. Yeah, just write it in a chat. So you like to read. Okay, awesome. So what I would start reading some kind of a blog about theater. Start reading a blog about public speaking. Does that make sense? Yeah. Start reading a blog about coaching. Right? That's an amazing new industry. You might like it. That involves a lot of public speaking and so forth. That makes sense? Okay, so reading, just you want to read a lot. That will kind of prepare you for the reading that you're going to have to do later for SAT and later in college. Those are two big things. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. Okay, so basically that is essentially the two main things I wanted to cover. One was this thing we talked about before. So I was talking SAT versus ACT. This is something I was showing, I think, before you came into the webinar, but we talked about that. And the most important thing is this. And again, this is going to be an ongoing work. So something that, but we talked about practical steps. The most important thing is not to keep it just as an idea, but start doing some very easy steps. And we talked about those. So you can start journaling, and two, you can start reading some fun blogs or fun magazines in those areas. So far, so good? Sounds good? Okay, awesome. Then I'm just gonna talk really briefly about one thing, and then I'm gonna finish with that. So, and I managed to misspell it. Beautiful. There we go. Yeah, I was editing it, and apparently not well. But if you liked any of the ideas you heard today, I have this short course. It's a sort of like a six modules or 6 lessons. And the lessons are very similar to what we were doing today, right? So the lesson is going to talk about a particular idea, like we talked about creating your story, right? Creating your story for the colleges. So it will talk about that idea, and that it will talk about what steps to take, right? So that's exactly what we did today. We talked about how to create a story and what steps could be the initial steps. Does that make sense? Except today we talked about only 2 things. We talked about SAT, what steps to take to start to do well on SAT, and we started talking about creating a story. The course that I'm going to be offering is going to have 6 lessons, and basically, first one is going to be how to stand out, and we started talking about it today. Creating story is one of the ways to stand out. We're going to talk about what do you have to do in school. So you do need, right? So I keep saying story, but you also need a good, you have to look good on paper as well, right? So you need to have certain number of courses, certain score on SAT, and that's going to be lesson number 2. And again, what steps to take. We're going to talk more about creating your story. So that's kind of how to use your passion to create a great story, and then use that to create a great application. We also, number 4 speaks about how to dominate the competition, how to really dominate the competition. And that is, again, what can you do to really stand out? And then there are a few things that nobody knows about, and that makes you really a super applicant. And that is basically doing things that no other teenager will ever do. And basically, I'll talk about those things more in that course. And finally, the last one is about the college visits, essays, basically how to create a connection with a college even before you get into college. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. So I just wanted to briefly introduce the course. If you liked anything we talked about, that's basically more of it. Tell your mom. It's very cheap. I'm going to put, it's very affordable. I'm going to put the link to this course in the chat. Can you see it? Right? It's basically $27, and I'm going to keep it like that. I'm going to keep it like that at that price for about a few days, because I'm going to send this recording in the next couple of days to everybody who was interested, and give everybody a chance to buy it. But I essentially have about 10 or so people that I want to take into it, because part of it also is going to be, a bonus is going to be a 30-minute consult. Again, very similar to what we were doing today with Marina and you. We got into some personal discussions, like how to make your particular application better. Does that make sense? And that's pretty much the course. And one last thing also for the questions, I'm going to leave my email over here for the questions in a chat as well. All righty. Awesome. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Cool. Did you learn anything useful? Anything? Yeah? A lot, actually. Okay, awesome. I appreciate you saying that. Awesome. Yeah, I love sharing it. My idea is not that you should just get into a good college. I'm sure your parents, have been taking good care of you. I know you're going to get into a good college. But my idea is also that you take some steps, and that's what we talked about. Take some steps to maybe find something you really like, and find something that's going to make you stand out. That makes sense? So you're going to get more excited, more motivated about it than simply, don't get me wrong, getting a great career is very important. You're going to learn it as you, you're going to learn it as you, as you go from school to college to work and so forth. Super important to have a good career, allows you tons of opportunities, right? But also, in my opinion, super important to kind of start early on thinking about creating what your story is going to be. What are you gonna, what are you gonna do that is going to make a difference? Does that make sense? Awesome. Unless you have questions, I'm going to say goodbye. Any questions at all? Oh, you mean the three circles chart? Yeah, that chart, the three circles. The truth is, I did not invent it. A lot of people in the coaching industry. Coaching is basically sort of like applied psychology. Coaching is where coaches are the people, and I'm talking about life coaches. So those are the people who help you sort of like be at your best, like perform 100%, get motivated, get excited about things, finish your projects and stuff like that. So a lot of the coaches use similar charts. I adjusted that chart a little bit to make it work for students. To make it work for students. But I personally use that chart as well. Like I'm 43, but I still always think about, okay, what are my talents? What do I like? And I adjust it as well. And like I do a lot of tutoring, but now I also do other courses and teach people other things that I might feel excited about and so forth. But it's really great. What I'm going to do, and I do it in my course, but you can also send me an email. There is also a fairly good book, and the author of that book talks a lot about this similar chart. He has a very similar chart, and he gives way more examples than I could, because I had, we had to stick to about an hour here. But there is a book about it as well that I could recommend to you. So just shoot me an email. You see my email there, right? Yeah, copy it. I also talk about that book in a course. So if you guys decide to buy it, then I'll talk about that book in a course. I'm going to put a link to it on my website, because yeah, I think it's a great chart. You liked it? Awesome. Yeah, that's sort of my creating this beautiful, that chart again is to create your story. You know what I mean by the story, right? I was trying to explain a lot. So that is sort of my key idea. That is my key idea. Don't just take courses. Don't just do well on SAT, but have some kind of a path. Develop some kind of path for yourself. Do something at least, like it's not always possible. Maybe you love theater, but it might be super difficult to, let's say, make money with it. It might or might not be, I don't know. But you can still find how to use that passion and how to make it fuel some other projects and so on. Cool? Awesome. Any other questions? Well, awesome. It was nice meeting you, and I love it when students join me on these sessions. That's a really good sign. That means you are ahead of the game. Usually it's parents. Parents are more motivated, but I love that to see a student on one of these. Alrighty. If any questions come up, email me. Right. I'm gonna put you guys on my subscription list, so you're gonna get more videos from me and more things. Tell your mom about the course if she wants to buy it, and so forth. Yep. All right. Nice meeting you too. Take care, Alex. Bye.